Welcome to Hardheaded Podcast. What does a businessman,
an entrepreneur,
and a Marine veteran
have to say about what's going on in the world today? Join us and find out.
In 3, 2,
kick it!
Welcome to another episode of Hardheaded. I'm your host, Matt Amos. With me, as always, Chet, Sears, and Troy Trussell. Today, we have what's on Chet's mind. We're going to cover our top 3 best tasting fish. Now, when I sent this out as a request to the group, I said best eating fish, and City Boy Chet had no idea what I was talking about, and he changed it to best tasting fish. Troy's going to close us out with a good word. Chet, what is on your mind?
I've got 2 things on my mind. The first one, they're kind of related. So, back where I was raised in Louisiana, dogwoods were very popular.
Yes.
The dogwood tree.
Yep, they're popular here.
No, they're not.
Yeah,
No, they're not. I saw them everywhere where I was. Hence, popular. I can't tell you where one dogwood tree is in the Wichita Metroplex. Anyway,
I got a bunch of them up by my place.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Oh, I want one.
Because we always know when they bloomed.
You go fishing.
Yeah.
So the Bradford Pear is kind of that for me
now.
now.
Same thing here.
Yeah. Yeah, and
they're trying to do away with that, by the way.
Dude, that's what I want to talk about.
Okay,
I didn't know this. It was one of a few trees when I moved into my neighborhood in 2007. It was a new neighborhood, and so you had to plant everything and all the stuff, and they're like, you could only pick between this list of trees, and the Bradford Pear was one of them. I had a big, massive Bradford Pear in my house in Louisiana. The tree in the front yard.
Oh, yeah, it was huge.
Huge. And I'm like, well, a second house, might as well have a Bradford Pear in the front yard of the second house too. And so I planted. You can't, in 2 years, the state law, so they passed it already, a rule or whatever, it'll be illegal in 2 years to bring a Bradford Pear across state lines.
What?
Or to move one inside the state.
Why?
Because it's a non-native species. And it's propagating itself at a rate that they did not anticipate happening. So they're growing everywhere.
In Kansas?
And around metropolitan areas, which is basically just Wichita. So I had no clue. But tree discrimination.
I'm going to plant one.
I mean, they're coming after it.
I get it not being a native species. I understand that. But
half
why?
the stuff we have here. You know what else is not native? Fescue grass. But it's required.
Well, that's by your HOA. That's not the state.
The city requires there's only a limited number of grasses you can plant in the city.
Well, that's money related. So how is because that goes back to the grass mafia from like one of our very first episodes. How are they profiting from the Bradford Pear or limiting? What tree are they making you plant now?
No. Well, here's the thing. I'm not pulling my tree up if that's what they think. I don't think that's in there. But this problem's never going away. The milk has been spilt. The toothpaste is out of the tube. It's not going back.
The city has literally lined Kellogg
with Bradford
pears.
Yes.
And now they're saying
no more Bradford pears.
Wow.
The reasoning is just not native. So why
not native, and people are like, oh, and it stinks when it blooms.
What, does it?
I've never smelled it. But people are like, oh, those trees stink. And I'm like, I think they made that up to get you to not like it, because I've never smelled one.
I've never smelled one.
I've got one in my front yard.
I don't think I've never smelled one either.
Well, you look it up. They're like, oh, these trees stink. There's so much hate towards the pear tree, and I'm beside myself on just trying to figure it out. Like there's heck, I got a couple comments here. It's just crazy why they talk about these trees. So last month, the Kansas Department of Agriculture Secretary Michael Beam ordered a quarantine on the Crappie pear tree, which is also known as the Bradford pear. that would be prohibited from any movement in Kansas as well as any movement within the state. The order carries with it the possibility of criminal prosecution in accordance with certain state laws.
If you plant one or move one?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so dumb.
I'm going to be a tree smuggler. What'd you go down for? So here's a post on the Kanza Prairie Nature Trail. Yuck, Bradford pears. The pear is blooming. With some might think these trees are pretty, but they are awful weeds. Why? Because they're invasive. They're fakes. The flower, which is pretty, doesn't offer nectar or pollen. They're weak. The limbs are weak, and the wood breaks easily, and they stink. Just hatred. Hatred for this tree.
I don't understand.
And I don't get it. But anyway.
It's just a tree.
About a month ago, the trees were in full bloom, and I knew it was time to wet a line. So I took my father-in-law and my son fishing on a lake that a friend of mine was gracious enough to give us access to, a lake that I'm familiar with and have fished with Matt on before my friend had purchased that property. And boy,
nailed him.
Every now and then, everything lines up, and it lined up, and we tore them up. It was a lot of fun. We took a break, and let's stop fishing for a while for two reasons. It's lunchtime, and the stringer that I brought with me was full, like doubled up on every hook. Couldn't put any more fish on. And so we're like, let's haul these back, because I had a couple other stringers, but they were back at the truck. So we walked up the truck, had lunch, unloaded the fish, got a couple more stringers, and went back and continued to tear them up. And it was so much fun, a lot of fun. And then we got back the day after that. Stone got out there and got him going on cleaning them, and he did a fantastic job, which makes me really happy, because I think one of the peak levels of fatherhood that you get to is when you get to go out and do all the taking of the game, but somebody else does all the cleaning of the game. And we are basically there with fish now. Not that I'm ever just going to leave them hanging and sit back and watch, especially when you had to clean as many as we did. But his level of proficiency is high.
A little braggy.
What is?
If he'd have just invited us, we'd be cleaning a lot more.
I don't necessarily get to invite a bunch of people to places I'm invited to.
We could have fed the 5,000.
I know, right?
You know what? It felt like that because I was pulling them out of the cooler, and then we had a little line going.
And another one would just appear.
And
every time you reach in, another one.
We filled up one of my pans, one of my bowls of filleted meat. And I looked in the cooler, and I'm like, it's like I hadn't even taken a single fish out yet. Like there's fish
Chet's
everywhere.
in his front yard.
It's a miracle.
That's a good feeling, though.
Yeah,
man.
dude.
That's a lot of fun.
When you're in the middle of it, and it's going. I've had a couple of times bird hunting like that, where it's just like, this is going to be. You knew it. This is going to be
the pinnacle.
One of the top fishing trip memories I have, and it was that. And I got to experience that with my father-in-law and my son. And it was just beautiful.
Troy's dad.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
He took your dad fishing, Troy.
I know they don't ever invite me. It's fine.
Yeah.
So anyway,
two-way street.
I do want
to.
I want to back up a little bit because I got some verbiage here about these Bradford pears.
Let's hear it.
Bradford pears grow very aggressively. They can easily get out.
How do you grow aggressive?
Stop. They can easily get out of control and grow into dense, thorny thickets. This tree is tolerant of a wide range of environmental conditions, from full sun to full shade, moist to dry soils, and high levels of pollution and disturbance. They are also resistant to most pests and diseases.
Which would be a great reason to have one in your yard.
That's like a good thing.
After a heavy storm, you may notice several limbs completely snapped off the tree. This will leave the tree badly damaged and are vulnerable to pests and diseases. They have literally contradicted themselves in the very article that they're writing.
And if you're going to ban trees because storms break limbs off, we wouldn't have a pecan tree in this state.
And it also said it's very unattractive and leaves a great deal of vegetative debris.
What's unattractive about a blooming?
It's the first thing
tree
that blooms. It's a nice white freaking flower. It looks good.
Yeah.
You drive, man, it's spring. You know what? Also, it's time to go fishing.
Yeah. I don't know why.
Maybe that's what it is. It's these fishermen that are putting the weights in the fish to win. They want these gone so you don't know when to go.
Maybe that could be it.
This
is
a
conspiracy.
It's the fish mafia, boys. It's the fish mafia.
Acting like that grass mafia doesn't exist.
Oh man.
Well, anyway, that's what's been on my mind, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to top this crappie fishing trip, but I got a lot of fish in the freezer right now.
Heck yeah.
And that's going to be a Trussell deal because, your dad caught a lot of those fish. So we're going to have to all eat them together. I imagine at some family function coming up soon. Troy.
Hey, I didn't even have to go and I get to eat them.
There you go.
Take it all back.
I'll be honest with you.
You got the dad pinnacle. There's even one higher.
The brother-in-law
pinnacle where he didn't invite me. All I do is show up and eat.
He cooks it. He
That's
cleaned
even
it, cooked
better.
it. But I'll tell you, the way they were biting and the once we figured it out where they were, it wasn't like a small place. It was just the conditions anywhere on the lake if you hit the certain depth around some grass. If we would have had like 2, 3, 4 more fishermen, we would have had 100, 150. Easy. Like it would have just been.
How low was it compared to normal?
It was above the island.
Was it?
The island was about 12 inches
So
deep.
they've gotten some good rain out there then.
Yeah, it was.
That's good.
Yeah, it was a great time. It was a great time. I enjoyed it. Hope to do it again.
Well,
right.
Appreciate you bringing us what was on your mind there with the tree mafia now.
I had to go short because
some fish.
Last time I had what's on my mind, I went long.
People were scared as soon as I said we're going to hear what's on Chet's mind. They're like, "Let me get a beverage and sit down here for the next 3 hours."
I'm gonna have to take the long way to work today.
I'm going to call him Chet Rogan. All right, moving on. We're going to go to our top 3 after this short break. When we come back, top 3 best tasting fish.
I mean, that was so short. I don't even know we need a break.
And we're back. At Admiral's Pennant, our mission is to offer the latest and refined, high-quality masculine products and services to the modern gentleman, as well as provide him with the tools and products necessary to look, act, and feel confident in his appearance and social interactions. Check it out at admiralspennant.com. Without it, you might as well shave. We are back with top 3 best tasting fish. Troy.
All right.
Start us off.
There's always a caveat.
I hesitate to even hear what's your top 3.
Did you freshwater, saltwater, a little both?
Little both.
Okay.
And I have caught all of these fish.
I just went freshwater.
Yeah, I got one that's saltwater.
Yeah.
My first one is an amberjack.
Yeah.
Caught some of those in the Gulf. Took them home, cooked them. They're pretty thick, like fish steak.
Yeah, I'm a fan.
Good stuff, really good. And on the same trip, we caught cobia. We caught a bunch of them. They are also known as lemon fish and a bunch of other names that I didn't know. Codfish, black salmon, black kingfish, ling, crab eater. But
Okay.
Cobia.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are good. The way we cook those is basically just like you sear ahi tuna. We just did the same thing with that lemon fish, and they tasted really good.
You do that on the boat?
We didn't on this trip.
Yeah.
We did it on another trip. On this trip, we did it after we got back to Shreveport. Yeah. But yeah, it was some good stuff. And those are fighters, man.
Yeah. most all saltwater fish.
Yeah.
They are as aggressive as a Bradford pear tree grows.
Yes. Well, that amberjack was, 50, 55 pounds.
Yeah.
But those cobia are like 20 pounds.
Yeah.
And those cobia fought a lot harder.
Yeah.
Than that amberjack. Yeah. And then number one, my favorite fish to eat always is crappie. Love it. Just fry it up. And I've got a little recipe I use, and I don't stray from it. And it's fantastic.
Wait, hot oil and cornmeal?
Well, I put some spices in the cornmeal, and
Yeah.
I use sour cream as a base. Sometimes I use egg if I don't have sour cream, but sour cream as a base is pretty good.
Really?
Yeah, I used to always just
How does
use
it make
egg.
a difference? It just gives you a better, thicker crust?
A little bit thicker, not too much.
Yeah.
But it's just cleaner as you're making it. But I learned it from the Duck Dynasty's, what's their buddy? The white goatee.
Oh, Godwin.
Yeah, Godwin uses sour cream, and I was watching something of his on YouTube,
Yeah.
and I was like, I'll try that next time.
He's credible because I was thinking, man, you're crazy. But when you mentioned him, I'm like, oh, maybe I could try it.
So I tried it after he did it on his little YouTube channel, and
Yeah.
fantastic. And it's not as messy as egg. I love it. Yeah.
All right.
Good.
Awesome.
Yep. All right. Who's next?
Chet?
Number 3, walleye. Just a wonderful, wonderful fish. Got a buddy of mine that was raised up north and lived down south, and he says it's his number 1 and by far better than crappie. I haven't eaten it as much as I have crappie,
Me either.
but
I haven't caught it as much.
what I've caught and what I've cooked, I was very impressed with it. But it is my number 3, and my number 2 is crappie. Love it. And it's probably, of all the fish on my list, I eat that more than anything else. But my number 1, the old Opelousas catfish, the Flathead catfish. And that goes back. That's a delicacy, and goes way back to my childhood, and used to run trot lines with my dad, catching the big old ops. We'd catch brim, bluegill, and put them we had a washing machine agitator, the old drum, that we kept our bait in, keep them alive, and then run out on the weekend and bait up the trot lines and catch some big old flatheads. And had a lot of fun with that. A lot of good eating.
I used to do that.
Yeah.
Run the trot lines and catch
Good old days.
big old catfish.
John boat days.
Good old, we just had waders. I didn't even have
Oh,
waders.
yeah?
I didn't have waders. We would just walk out, and
Yeah.
always a lot of fun because you never know when you're walking out there and
Dude.
what's on the line.
I may have told this story before, but they drained a lake to deal with some vegetation issues when I was like 10, 12 years old. And my dad's dad was they were living near us at the time just for a short amount of time. And he called his brother down from Arkansas, and he brought like some rigged up 55-gallon drum with a bunch of goldfish and some aerator in it. Because apparently at the time it was illegal to fish with goldfish. But my dad's side of the family wasn't too concerned about laws when it came to fishing or hunting. But they drained the lake down, but naturally the creek that was there before they made the lake was the only thing that had water in it. And we just like zigzagged across the creek and just dropped just all kinds of bait, and would run them at night. It was a dead heat of summer. It was so hot. And we camped at the campground of the lake, and we spent 4 or 5 days. And one night we pulled in over 500 pounds of catfish, and the biggest one being like 56 pounds.
Wow.
And I was getting scared. Like I was sitting in the back of the boat. I was the spotlight guy, little kid. And they threw that, when they got that fish in, there's 2 dudes like leaning over the boat and, pulling that thing up and get it in and get the hook out and just kind of slide it back in there. And I'm just sitting in the back of the John boat, and it just slid up, and the foot went right, or its mouth went right over my foot. My whole foot just sticking up in his mouth. I'm like, "Ooh," this is a monster. And then I also did not know this, but learned how gasoline reacts with your skin. if you're exposed to it for a long amount of time, because apparently the boat cushion I was sitting in that night had been sitting and the tank was leaking. It was soaked in gas. I had some problems. It was burning after a little while. But
Not good.
No. Memorable trip. And the other thing that was really cool, my grandpap, had a carbide headlamp, the open flame.
Oh, wow.
And instead of like a battery powered deal. And that dude didn't have mosquitoes around him because they'd all get attracted to the light and they were just burning. And my dad had a battery powered one and he's just getting consumed with bugs. And of course, I'm having to hold the Q-beam like way over here because it's just nasty Louisiana. Summertime heat, mosquitoes everywhere.
Man.
We'll pass.
Flathead catfish. What a man will do for a fish.
A lot.
What you got, Matt?
All right, number 3. And I had a hard time. But I'm going to put crappie at number 3. For the longest time, crappie was my favorite fish. And it's still up there with, it's in my top 3. But I get a chance to eat it a lot more than I do these other ones. But these other ones have a couple of stories attached to them. So I don't know if my judgment is skewed on these two. Because number 2 is incomu.
Like fishing out of a canoe?
No, incomu.
Whatever you catch in a canoe?
No, INCONNU.
I'm having deja vu.
Me too.
What kind of fish is this?
It's a whitefish.
Freshwater, saltwater?
Freshwater. And I'd never
What part of the country? I've never
heard
of this.
of this fish.
Is it like in freshwater streams in Alaska?
You've heard of it because we've had this conversation before.
We have had this conversation before.
I do not recall this conversation.
But when I was moose hunting up in Canada,
Yeah.
in the Yukon Territory, we were fishing, in between hunts, these little rivers, and it's like I was slaying the fish, just hammering them, and
Yeah, because they'd never seen a lure before.
and come in and bam,
Got lucky.
here's I'm pulling these fish. I'm like, what is that? And they're like, oh, it's incomu. We're going to keep that. And then we just kept catching fish, and most of them were incomu. There was some northern pike that were in there too. But we brought the incomu back, and my buddy had shot a moose a couple days before. So we took the fat off the moose, rendered it down, and then breaded the incomu with barbecued potato chips.
Yeah.
And fried it up in the moose fat. And that is that would be my number 1.
Yeah.
Because I believe at the time that was my favorite fish that
Anytime
I've
you've
ever
ever eaten
had,
fish,
ever
yeah.
eaten fish. And it may be just because I was hungry, hunting, I'm out in the wilderness.
There's something there, right? Because if I eat Vienna sausages like right here,
Disgusting.
but you put me out by campfire after a couple days, best thing ever.
Amazing. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's that same kind of deal there. And these 3 are just so close to being all number 1s.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know exactly how to order them other than the rarity in which I've had them.
Yeah.
So that incomu, I had so much of it for the 11 days I was there the first time, and then the 11 days that I was there the second time. So 22 days basically of eating a lot of this fish.
Yeah.
Fresh right out of the water, which was fantastic. And number 1 would be redfish. So saltwater out of the Gulf. And my buddy's dad actually had some, because I've never caught one, because you're only allowed 1 on your tag when you're fishing in Texas. And I've still, to this day, never caught one. But my buddy's dad goes fishing, and he had some in his fridge and cooked it up for us. And, it was phenomenal. Whitefish, and he's a really, really good cook. And the way he just prepared it on a stove with some oil and fried it up. And that was amazing. I don't know any other way to explain it other than that. And I've only had it that one time in that limited amount. And I was like, man, that's so good. I need another helping for a better opinion on this.
Yeah.
But it was so good. So that's why that made my top 3, my number 1, because that's the fish I've eaten the least.
Of all those
that I was just like, man, that was so good.
So I've got an honorable mention, red snapper. Big fan of that. We had a I was back in 2019. We chartered a boat out of Mississippi, Alabama, and got into them with the kids. It was a lot of fun. And then we were renting a house there, and we cooked snapper for days. And however, blackened, fried, grilled.
Man, I love blackened fish. All of blackened catfish.
Yeah.
All of it. Yeah.
Yep.
It's my favorite way.
All right.
Sheefish. Another name for incomu.
And canoe. I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Yeah. According to this article.
S-H-E?
S-H-E-E. Fish.
Okay.
Yep.
That must be a native name for them.
Also known locally here in Alaska as incomu. So, yeah.
All right. Awesome.
Very cool.
Troy, you got a good word?
Yeah, so it's just good news. I got some good news for you.
Oh, I like good news.
I think one of the main things that we'll be able to dine on at the Lord's table in heaven is fish. You know why? You know why I think that?
This is a joke?
No.
Okay.
Because Jesus ate fish a lot, and he liked fish. And when he was resurrected, they caught, in John 21, he told them from the beach, told them to throw the net over the side. And they caught 153, I believe it was. 153 fish, large fish, and the net did not tear. And so then they came. Jesus said, now come and have some breakfast. And they came. That's when he had the talk with Peter.
Mm-hmm.
Asked him 3 times, and then he told them to feed my sheep. So, yeah, just some good news that I believe that we're going to have some fish in heaven.
Okay.
Something to look forward to.
I'm looking forward to more things than that.
Yeah, but, just kind of went in with the top
The
3.
whole
The fish.
being in the presence of God.
Well, yeah, that's, of course, number
Yeah.
1. But,
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think we're going to care
Fish will
about
make
fish.
the top 3. Fish will make the top 3,
fish
but not
will
number
probably-
1.
Fish will probably be up there.
Fish will get honorable mention.
I'm hungry.
Yeah, that's a lot better than saying that after your last episode.
Hey.
All right.
Thanks for listening to the Hardheaded Podcast. Don't forget to share this podcast with others to help us get the word out.
Also, if you haven't yet, please rate and review the show. This helps our podcast show up in other people's suggested shows that may or may not have listened to us before.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.